In this video, I want to have a look at the Array.choose method. What this method allows us to do is to partially filter out objects of an array. But in addition to that, it allows us to manipulate those elements that we keep at the same time. So you might be familiar with the Array.filter method that we've done a previous video on. That method only filters elements based on some function that we provide. The choose function is similar, but instead of just filtering out items, it allows us to also manipulate them. To see how we use this function, let's do it in two steps. So the first thing I want to illustrate is how to just use this for filtering purposes. So let's say we have some input array. I'm going to define it like this, and I'm going to allow it to have option types to begin with. We're going to see why in a second. Some1, none, let's say, and some3, like that. What I'm going to define now is an output variable, output1, and I'm going to say this is input1. This should be output. Here we go. And I'm going to send this to array.choose, like that. And I'm just going to provide the identity function here. I'll execute this and then I'll explain the result. What we can see in the output is that the array that we get as an output here keeps the elements 1 and 3. The option wrappers are now removed, and we just have the elements that were contained. So what this Array.choose method does is it looks at it applies a function to an array. In this case, we just apply the identity function. After that function has been applied, it looks at the array and keeps everything that has a sum value and removes everything that has a none value. So now we just provide the identity function and we don't manipulate the input array, but we could send another input array, manipulate it first, and then this Array.choose function is going to keep whatever elements have a sum. So to see how that works, let's define a slightly more complex example now. Let input2 be equal to a new array. And in here, we are going to just give it the values 1, 2, and 3, like that. And we're going to say output2 is equal to input2 sent to array.choose. And this time we're actually going to define a function here. So function, the input, we'll call it n, and we're going to say if n over or modulus 2 is equal to 0. So if it's divisible by 2, then sum, and let's do n plus 10 here. So if it's divisible by 2, then we're going to add 10 to the number in the input array. If it's not divisible by 2, we're going to say the result is none. Now let's execute this part and you'll see the difference. I actually need to change this to input 2 like that in one word. But here we can see the output. So we send in this array 1, 2, 3. The output we get is 12. So what happens here? We apply this function to each element in the array first. We begin with applying 1 here. 1 is not divisible by 2, so we return none. Then we apply 2. 2 is divisible by 2, so we return sum 12, because 2 plus 10 is 12. 3 gets applied last, and 3 is not divisible by 2, so we return none. So we have 2 none values and 1 value of 12, and we only keep the sum value. So 12 is the only thing that remains in the output array. So what it allows us to do is put a filtering criteria in here, but also a manipulation of the values that get kept. So choose is a great way if you want to select some elements of your array, but you also want to do manipulations on those in one step directly. What you could alternatively do is use the array filter function in combination with the array map function, but the Array.choose function allows you to do that in one function application.